Hey guys, for this service, we're going to be doing first a big chop to get rid of any potential damage that there might be with those super light and dry ends. And we're going to be doing a foilayage to give her tons of dimension. So if you want to see how we tackle this service, then keep watching. You guys can follow me over on Instagram at Christy@the_cottage. All right, here's my clients before. We're going to do a rough cut before the service, but right now we're going to get into what we'll be doing. Okay, so I just got done talking to my client about what we're going to do with her hair, and she first came in like a while ago. We had kind of an in-person consultation, and she gave me her budget that she wanted to stay under, which honestly gives us a lot of room to work with. She's pretty realistic about the cost of the service for what she wants and everything. Obviously, if we could stay under that, that'd be great. I don't think we're gonna go with the original plan that we had though, because she wanted it to be an older video that I've done before where the hair is very, very ashy. It's a very dark ashy color, but it still has a lot of lightening that we have to do in bleaching and everything with like big color melt and whatever. However, she said that she wants to be able to like go 6 months really and have low maintenance hair. So I told her that I don't know if that's the right route that we should take for this service, just for how much we have to bleach, and if she's gonna go that long in between, then I don't know. Like once ashy tones kind of fade out, then you're kind of left with a really kind of light blonde color. And that's because with ashy tones, you kind of have to lift it a little bit lighter than you would, just because you have to tone down 2 levels, like you have to lift it up almost 2 levels lighter than what you want it to be, just so that you can counteract the warmth. So I told her if that's the case, then she might be fading to blonde. And if she likes to go a while in between, then that might not be the best route just because of how her hair is gonna fade. So we decided on maybe something in between. I really like the 724, maybe a little 21, just because it's kind of a nice cooler beige tone. So I think the goal will not be to be super ashy and almost gray. I think it will just be like a nice cooler beige color. It will be the goal to go for. So right now we're gonna mix our color or our bleach. I'm gonna use Schwarzkopf Blonde Me with 20 volume and Olaplex. I don't think she has a lot of color on her hair right now. She had gotten like a balayage done before and then a toner. So toner sheet, all that we have to try and lift through. So hopefully that won't be too hard or create a lot of warmth or anything. So that's our goal for today. Oh yeah, and I know before I've talked about how I mix my bleach, because a lot of people that use the Schwarzkopf Blonde Me, it swells a lot. And so the way that I prevent that from happening is sorry, I'm gonna take my lid off. I kind of put a little bit of water in my bleach. So somebody asked if I could show how I do that, and I've showed it before in a few other videos, but I'll just show you guys right now how I mix my lightener. I'm not really a measurer, so I usually go by consistency. I just feel like this bleach is very, very thick. And so to thin it out a little bit and to prevent swelling, that's why I add a little bit of water versus going down in volume. Don't judge our sink. So I just have the water running a little bit, and I just, like, that's about it. I really don't do a whole bunch of water, just enough to thin it out. Oh, I know someone's gonna ask. So adding the water doesn't diminish the lifting power. It's probably honestly like a 15 volume or something like that. But I feel like it still gets really good lift. Like when I do my client today, you'll see that it still lightens really good. And the reason why I don't use a lower developer like 7 or 10 or whatever is because it's still not a strong enough lift that I want. So that's why. This just, I found, has worked for me. So to start her service, we're going to do her foils around the hairline. And I want you to pay attention after I finish this whole front hairline section. All that bleach that we just mixed was used in this front part of her hairline, this first part of the service. So this is why I say, like, don't over mix your bleach to where you have a huge bowl, because I try to like remix my bowls every like 45 minutes or so. I don't like to keep it any longer than that because I want the bleach to stay nice and fresh and make sure that it has the same lifting power throughout the whole service. There's lots of times where I will see a stylist that will, okay, for the back, we're going to start with 10, and then in the front, we're going to do like 20 volume, and we're going to speed it up a little bit so that way we'll match or speed up and catch up with the 10 volume in the back. But they mix it all at the same time, and that 20 volume is sitting there for probably an hour before you even get to it. So by the time you finally get to the 20 volume for that part of the head that you're trying to foil now, it has sat for so long, the lifting power is pretty much gone, and it's still going to be just like a level 10. Or 10 volume. So that lifting power is pretty much gone, and a lot of people will come back and say, why am I not getting it so light that I want it to be up at the top? And that's because the strength of the volume was higher, but you let it sit for so long that now it's basically, a weaker bleach again. So make sure you're refilling your bowls every, 45 minutes or so. That way it stays fresh. I feel like that makes such a big difference, especially when you're working with darker hair. You want to make sure that you have good fresh bleach through the whole service to make sure that you're not going to get stuck at like a level 8. A lot of people that have dark hair that come to me are always like, oh, I can never get my hair light enough. And, the stylist that they probably are seeing probably doesn't remix their bleach often enough. They might, like, I see some people make these huge gigantic bowls of bleach, like 3 scoops worth of bleach for the whole entire service, and it might be like 3 hours worth of application, versus I only ever just use 1 scoop of bleach. I might do a little bit more if they have very thick hair and I know like this 1 bowl of bleach is going to go by really quickly. So just make sure that you're refreshing your bleach. Just keep it nice and I don't like powerful to make sure that it keeps good lift. And then also make sure like throughout the service, you'll see me keep checking her hair to make sure that it's lifting nicely, because sometimes bleach does stop working after a certain point, right? What do they say? Like an hour. That's why you need to keep remixing your bleach instead of letting it sit there for 3 hours and using the same bowl. After an hour, the lifting power is probably not as strong. So make sure that you go back through and reapply lightener if you need to, especially with dealing with darker hair. That way it continues lifting. And I've had people say like, what are you doing? Why are you going back through and reapplying bleach? And I'm kind of shocked because I'm like, well, you have dark hair. We have to reapply if we want it to keep lifting and get lighter. If you don't want to be stuck at like that level 8 caramely tone. And they're like, I've never had anybody do that before, which to me is kind of mind-boggling, because I feel like you should go back through and check the hair and make sure that you're getting good lift and lifting past that warm stage if the hair is really, really dark, or even if it's just really coarse or whatever. So just make sure that you're keeping up on checking your work and keeping your bowls nice and fresh. By the way, if you're noticing music in the background, that's because I still have not resolved the issue of the copyright. I have not figured anything else out as far as adding different music, but I'm trying to use the different songs that are available to me that have not previously been copyrighted. So the other ones I will not use. However, the songs are still not a great choice, but it's better than nothing. And it's also better than me singing Mariah Carey, Honey. So I just wanted to throw that out there. All right, so for my client's money piece, we are going to keep this a little bit brighter. And so we are going to go a little bit closer up to the root around her hairline, because this is going to be a little bit brighter than the rest of the hair. And so these first two foils, we're going to do really fine weave directly up to her hairline. And then the next foils after that, we're going to do a weave and then back comb it. So that way it kind of helps soften it at the root area. I know that she wants to be a little bit brighter, but I don't think she necessarily wants to have this huge, chunky, huge, extremely bold money piece directly up to her root. So doing just the first two foils, really fine weaves, back to back with not really like a subsection, but just, not super close together either, like not right on top of each other. And then doing a back combed weave for the foil after this. That's going to give it a nice brightness all the way up to her hairline. But adding that back comb on this third one is just going to soften it up just a little bit to kind of create a little bit of a shadow. So that way when it grows out, she doesn't have this huge like line of demarcation just right on her hairline. It's going to just be a little bit softer because of that back comb we'll be doing. And then the following foils that we're going to be doing, I'm going to find where she parts her hair. And then we're going to do these foils kind of angled back off of her part, kind of underneath where the hair falls. So that way she has that brightness that's there, but it's falling more underneath where she parts her hair. So that way she doesn't have like horrible grow out. She'll still have the brightness that she wants, but it's going to be a little bit more soft and subtle. And it will also help blend with the foils that we did on her hairline. We did probably like 5 or 6 foils back to a little bit behind the ear. And that's going to help give her a lot of brightness around the hairline, which is what she was really wanting. Because she wants more of a low maintenance color, I thought like, well, we can do it nice and bright underneath, but I don't think we should do it too heavy up top because I don't want her to feel like she has to come back in 2 or 3 months or whatever. If she really only does her hair like maybe twice a year, then doing the highlights this way will kind of give her a little bit more time in between before she feels like her hair is way too bright. So we're just going to do these few foils underneath to make sure that she still has some hair that's going to fall on top of this. And that way the brightness will kind of be more highlighted underneath and around her face versus up on the top of the hair, which is where she would notice the grow out. All right, now that we finished foiling on this side, we're going to flip to the other side of the head and repeat the same thing. And hopefully you'll be able to see a little bit better. Sometimes I feel like this side of the head is a little bit better to see. So let me know if you guys want me to edit out if it's kind of harder to see and if it's easier to see on one side of the head just to show that side, or if you got, sometimes I'll like cut out some of the areas just because, if you guys can't see too well, then sometimes these videos can get too long, so I'll cut it out where I can. So let me know if you guys like it when I cut out some of the some of the footage and then just leave in this kind of section where you can see it a lot better? Or do you guys just want to watch the whole thing regardless and don't really care? Because I know it probably goes both ways. So if you guys are noticing, I'm doing some pretty big weaves, and that will create more dimension within the hair. You can see when I put this down, like you can definitely see like where the weaves are very like spaced out in between, and that's going to give her a lot of dimension. Whereas if I was weaving but the weaves were like very close together and very thin and fine, where it still looked almost solid hair all the way through, that would be more of a blended look and it would create less dimension in the hair. So depending on whatever your client wants, if they want to see lots of dimension, then you could do more of, you know, a very spaced out weave. But if they want it to be more blended, then you could do more really fine weaves and, you know, just a really, really quick weave instead of versus like, you know, maybe 5 bigger weaves. And that will kind of give you some variant within the application. And then this last one right here, we're going to take like a larger triangle section, pull all of the hair forward, weave it, back comb it, and then that's going to create a softer blend. All that hair is going to pull forward, and then when it actually is done and it's styled and laid down, that hair is going to kind of feather back with the blend to where it kind of creates a little bit more of a gradient look where it just kind of softly, the highlights blend back a little bit. So we're just going to feather that up kind of into the roots and then paint all the way through the ends. And then this will be all that we're doing around the front of the face and the hairline. And I want to say this part of the service probably took about 40 minutes or so. And you'll see like I'm scraping the bowl of bleach, and after this part we're gonna go refill another bowl. All right, so now we're gonna start in the back, and this application is a lot different than if somebody wants to go very light and create so much brightness in the hair. You can see that this bottom section is a pretty large section right at the nape of the neck, and we're taking a pretty, I don't want to say like it's a super thick section, but if this was somebody that was wanting to go very blonde, then I would definitely be starting very down further right at the hairline, taking very thin sections, very thin weaves. That way we get the best lift possible. But because I know the goal is not to be like a blonde, but just more softer and natural, it's okay not to go too heavy and overwork. I feel like as stylists, we always think like the most work, the better. And that's not necessarily the case. So you can see that directly, you know, up in this back section, I'm not going super close right up to her hairline on the sides either. And then I'm leaving a little bit larger of a subsection in between. So this whole like bottom half of her head, I'm really only putting in like below the ears. I'm really only putting in maybe these 3 foils. And that's going to create enough dimension in the hair that we're looking for. Because remember, she still wants to have enough of her natural left behind to where she feels like she doesn't have like heavy grow out, or that she has to come back in like every few months or whatever. She really wants to be able to go like 6 months in between without feeling like she needs to go in. So just throwing these foils in, and we're kind of doing more of like picking up more hair. So we're doing a little bit more of a thicker section, taking like a diagonal parting. Sometimes I'll go through like that first one that we did was more of a weave. These ones I'm kind of doing more of a slice, so that way you can create a little bit more dimension in these areas, because we're not going through and doing a whole bunch of foiling. Sometimes we'll go through and do like a heavier weave. Sometimes we'll go through and just do like a diagonal slice. And sometimes in between the sections, I'll do like a diagonal section too. A lot of people are, how come I'm like not getting
a very good blend. I feel like no matter what, like I'm not getting a good enough blend up into the roots. And so I always say, like, if you're taking a diagonal section, if you're doing, see right now I'm doing like a zigzag. If you're doing like a weave, a little zigzag, doesn't have to be perfect, but just enough to like interrupt the perfect straight line of a section where that would create more lines in the hair. All of those things put together, back combing, weaving it, diagonal sections, zigzag partings, whatever, all of that stuff is going to help you get the best blend possible. So always keep practicing. Make sure you're back combing really good. If you feel like you're getting too many lines in the hair still, then maybe take like thinner sections and then just do like two back combed weaves back to back, and that will kind of help blend the hair a little bit better, but you'll still get a thicker section of dimension because you're doing two fine weaves right on top of each other. So hopefully those are some tips for you guys. If you guys feel like you're not getting a very good blend, or if you're having a hard time with that, hopefully that helps. One of the things that I really like about doing the hairline foils that way, when you go back a little bit beyond the ears, is that now that I'm getting to this top section of the head, the sides are pretty much done. All I have to do really is go through and do maybe like two sections in the back. These foils will cover the back section, and then it will connect to around the ears. So after I do the back, I don't have to go back through and redo like the sides or anything. That's already done. So we'll just throw in these few foils in the back that will help connect with the front of the hair. And then that'll be it for like the bottom half of the head. And then as I work my way closer to the top, I'm going to take thinner sections and not such heavy subsections, because yes, we want to leave a lot of dimension in the hair and everything, but as we get a little bit closer to the top of the head, I'm going to do thinner subsections because I want to make sure that it's not too much dark or not too much depth falling on top of where the highlights are. I want to make sure that she sees through them and there's lots of dimension up in the top part of the hair. Sometimes if you leave too much of a subsection, even if somebody wants a lot of depth and darkness or more of a rooty look, I feel like they still want to see some sort of highlights or some sort of dimension within the hair. So leaving too much subsection can not necessarily be a good thing when you start getting to the top, even if they want more of a lived in or rooty color. So after these next few foils that I'm doing here, I'm going to start taking smaller sections, smaller weaves, whatever, and keeping my foils in a little bit closer together. And if somebody says they want to have more of a rootier balayage or whatever, and they want their roots for the first few inches of the hair, I still take the balayage up within an inch of their roots. I back comb it so that way I make sure, like, you know, the highlights aren't going directly up to their scalp and we're just kind of feathering it in. But I feel like if you do the balayage and they have their roots, you know, their crown is pretty dark, I feel like their hair is going to grow out really, really fast. And if their intention is to not have to come in too soon, then that kind of defeats the purpose, because they're already walking out with a grow out, kind of, if they do too many roots or whatever. So I like taking my foils and going up a little bit closer into the root, and then we'll go through and do like a darker root shadow, and not necessarily quite as dark as what their natural color is, but just a little bit lighter and a little bit cooler. That way it doesn't have, you know, too much warmth, you know, is a little bit brighter, where if you do an ashier color, it appears to be a little bit darker. So if you do a little bit more of a darker, ashier root shadow, then it's going to look a little bit darker anyways. They're not going to feel like they're too bright up into the roots. And then also it will create just a really soft dimension. Like at the very end of the video, you'll see her roots are dark, but when the light hits it, it just gives it a little bit of a softer dimension in the hair, to where she doesn't feel like she's, you know, just so dark all over. She's still going to have lots of time for her hair to grow out before she feels like she needs to come in, but she just has that really soft dimension that's going to kind of blend nicely from the root to the ends. So you'll see here, now that we're getting towards the top part of the head, I'm going to start taking really, really fine sections just to make sure that we get good coverage. So we'll finish these sections up now. Here I'm just asking her, where does she part her hair, just to make sure that we're in the right area and I know exactly where her hair is going to fall. I want to make sure that I'm doing the foils a little bit closer together. That way, if her hair falls a little bit more on one side of the part than the other, that no matter where it lays, she's going to have those highlights showing through. If I do too thick of subsections in between, then depending on how her hair falls or where she parts her hair that day, even if it's generally on the same side, not always do you have the same hair landing in the same exact spot. So I like to make sure that no matter where her hair falls, she's going to have those highlights showing through. And that's why we're going to do a little bit smaller of subsections in between. So you can definitely see in these past few foils that they're so much closer together than what we were doing kind of down underneath her hair, leaving a lot more dimension. So this is going to create a lot more, not necessarily brightness up top because we're not leaving it super light, but she's going to feel like she had more of a transformation with having a little bit more brightness in the hair, lightness, lighter pieces throughout the whole top section, but we're leaving enough of the subsection to where she's still gonna have a good amount of her natural for softer grow out. So now we're going to go through and recheck the hair just to see where it's sitting at. We're probably at like a level 7 right now. We want to keep lightening up the hair, so we're just going to keep on lifting. And this is a good point to make that people always ask me, why do I do the hairline first? For how long that's been sitting and it's still not light enough yet. Imagine if we left that last, like we'd be waiting forever. So, just going back through again, checking my work, seeing if we need to reapply it anywhere. And if we do, then we'll go through and take care of it. So now that we have her full application done for her highlights, we're going to go through and just tip out the ends a little bit because she does want to feel a little bit brighter throughout the ends. Remember that her overall goal was to be super light and ashy, but because of how she doesn't like to have heavy maintenance and she has a lot of pre-existing warmth in the hair, which we kind of determined was from a previous color that she had done, I told her I don't know how much I don't know how much warmth is going to be left in the hair. It might not lift past like a level 8. I'm not sure, just because of the color that's already on there. So I'd rather be, safe than sorry and make sure that we're reapplying and everything. But that's just, to say when somebody comes in and they have previous color on their hair that you have to lift through, but they want the super light and ashy color, sometimes it's just not realistic that it's going to happen. So you just have to let them know ahead of time, like, I'm not sure that we'll be able to lift your hair that light today. We can try for it. I just don't know if it's going to happen, but we can, compromise and try to find something that you'll be happy with still. So that's kind of what we did here. I told her, I don't know that your hair is going to lift to like a level 9. It might not. And so that's why we ended up with the end result that we have today. She wanted a very ashy level 8-9. And I just didn't know if that was realistic, especially with how the ends of her hair were. I was kind of concerned with damage. So that's why we ended up having to chop quite a bit of that off just to be safe. So, but you can see that her hair has a lot of warmth in it. And sometimes when somebody has a lot of warmth in the hair and they want to leave a lot of their natural and have a lot of dimension in there, sometimes that warmth can be a little bit counteracting to the ash and it just doesn't look good having such a cool tone hair, but then you have a lot of kind of like orangey, like darker, redder, warmer tones. Sometimes it just doesn't look very good together. So she came in, and if her hair was all natural, virgin, no color that we had to fight against, no warm tones existing in the hair, then we probably could have accomplished her goal today, and we probably could have done a really nice, pretty all over ash tone. But today that just wasn't very realistic. So we're still going to give her a really pretty color, but it's just not going to be super light that she maybe thought it was going to be. So we're just going to finish tipping out these last few ends, and then she's going to sit and process for probably a good hour just for, how warm her hair is lifting. But I will check it continuously throughout the service. All right, so here's everything that we did for full application. And I want to say that this probably took probably a little over 2 hours to put in. So again, now that she's been processing for a little bit, we're going to go through and check everything, reapply in some of these places, and then let it sit for like another 20 minutes. And now we're gonna pull the foils out. And I apologize, my phone was about to die. I wasn't able to really go into detail with the formulation. But I do want to say that you can see that even though we watered down her bleach, she still got pretty good lift. This is our formulation that we put right on the hairline and through the brightest parts of the hair where it's more through the ends. And then this next formulation that we do, you guys might need to pause it, but this is for her root shadow that we're going to put on. And I took her back to my station to make sure that we had a nice clean application. And you can see here how nice and ashy this is. And then through the rest of her hair where, you know, we kind of pulled the front section aside, this is the formulation that we used through like the midsection of her hair, from like basically just beyond the blending the roots in with this color through the whole rest of her hair. And I need to be honest, so the first formulation that I did, it over grabbed her hair. I did not put enough warmth. I thought because she had a lot of warmth existing in her hair, I thought that it would balance out the ashiness, and it did not. It over grabbed and I had to reformulate. So I just have to say that. So this is the after. And look what I'm talking about in the roots, how even though she has a root shadow and she wants to be a little bit rootier, she still has lots of soft dimension up in the root, but it still looks nice and dark. That's why it benefits the hair to like take the foils up a little bit closer. She has that brightness around the face. That first formulation that we did, the roots are nice and dark, but it blends really nicely within that third formulation we did through like the mids section, blending it into the ends. Hopefully that was okay. If you guys need to pause to go back through and look over the formulation, I tried to be more as accurate as I could with it. Hopefully it makes sense to you guys. If you have any questions, just ask and I'll try to answer it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you like this. It's definitely like a cooler, warmer tone. It's not too warm and orange of a caramely tone. And it has a nice ashier hint to it. So thank you guys again for watching. I hope you like this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe.